I was sitting in the kitchen, nursing my morning coffee, when my wife walked in and calmly dropped a bombshell. This Friday, I am going on a date with my gym trainer. Then we will go to his house, and I will be back in the morning. She said it so casually, as if she were discussing dinner plans, not the complete betrayal of our marriage. Everything inside me boiled. My fingers tightened around the ceramic mug, my pulse pounded in my ears. She expected shouting, threats, maybe even tears. But I smiled. Great idea, I said smoothly, leaning back in my chair. I've had my eye on my secretary, too. I think I'll take her out that same night. You don't mind, right? I threw over my shoulder as I took a sip of coffee. Her face turned pale. No, of course not. She stammered, but her entire demeanor had shifted. For the first time in years, I had the upper hand. She wasn't expecting this. No anger. No begging. Just cool indifference. The seed of doubt had been planted, and now, I just had to watch it grow. For the rest of the morning, I went about my usual routine as if nothing had happened. I finished my coffee, read the news on my phone, and even hummed a little tune while washing my cup. Meanwhile, my wife, Claire, stood frozen near the fridge, her expression blank, but I could see the gears in her head turning. She had expected fury, maybe even devastation. Instead, I had given her permission, encouragement, to do exactly what she had planned. But now, something wasn't sitting right with her. I grabbed my keys and threw on my jacket. I'll be home late tonight, I said casually. Might take Jessica, my secretary, out for a drink, just to warm things up before Friday. Claire didn't reply right away. She just stared at me, her lips slightly parted. Then she let out a short laugh, but it was forced. You're joking. I met her eyes. Am I? I watched as her throat bobbed with a swallow. The thing about Claire is, she's always been the one in control. Of our home, of our social life, even of our relationship. She made the plans, called the shots, and I followed because I loved her. But today, the game had changed. When I walked out the door, I didn't look back. But I knew, Claire would be thinking about this all day. That evening, I came home later than usual, just to keep Claire on edge. The house was eerily quiet when I stepped inside. Normally, she'd be in the living room watching one of her crime shows, curled up with a glass of wine. But tonight, nothing. I walked into the kitchen and found her standing at the counter, chopping vegetables with more force than necessary. The rhythmic thud of the knife against the cutting board filled the space. She didn't turn around when she spoke. So, how was work? Her voice was tight, forced casual. I smirked to myself. Good. Productive. I paused just long enough to let her feel the weight of silence. Jessica and I grabbed a drink after. The knife stopped mid-slice. Did you? She asked, her tone carefully neutral. I leaned against the counter, arms crossed. Yeah. Just something simple. Talked about life, work, other things. For the first time, she turned to look at me. I could see it in her eyes, uncertainty. She wasn't sure if I was bluffing. And that doubt? That was exactly what I wanted. You're really doing this? She asked, her voice quieter now. I raised an eyebrow. You seemed fine with it this morning. She let out a small, bitter laugh and turned back to the vegetables. Thud. 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 I could see it so clearly. She had planned her little betrayal expecting me to crumble, to beg, to fight for her. Instead, I had handed her a mirror, and now she didn't like what she saw. After a long pause, she finally said, I was just surprised, that's all. I nodded. I get it. But hey, it's only fair, right? Her grip on the knife tightened. And just like that, the power shifted again. The rest of the evening was drenched in tension. Claire barely spoke during dinner, pushing her food around her plate, while I ate like it was any other night. I made casual conversation, asking about her gym sessions, her plans for the weekend. She gave short, clipped answers. I could feel it, the unraveling. After dinner, I stretched my arms and let out a satisfied sigh. I think I'll turn in early, I said, pushing back my chair. Big day tomorrow. She finally looked up. Big day. Yeah, I said, as if it were obvious. Jessica invited me over for dinner. Just the two of us. I figured it'd be nice to spend some real time together before Friday. Claire's fork clattered against her plate. You're really going through with this? She asked, her voice sharper now. I tilted my head. You're not backing out of your date, are you? She hesitated. Just for a second. But I caught it. No, she said quickly. Of course not. I smiled. Good. Then we're both looking forward to a fun weekend. And with that, I walked upstairs, leaving her alone at the table. I didn't have to see her face to know what she was thinking. She had opened Pandora's box, but now, she wasn't so sure she liked what had come out of it. The next morning, Claire was up before me, something that almost never happened. She sat at the dining table with a cup of coffee, staring at her phone, her nails tapping anxiously against the ceramic mug. Morning, I said casually as I poured myself a cup. She looked up quickly, as if she had been lost in thought. Morning. I leaned against the counter, taking a slow sip. You're up early. She forced a small smile. Just couldn't sleep. Interesting. I sat down across from her and stretched. Guess you're excited for your big date. She stiffened. Guess so, she muttered, her eyes dropping back to her phone. I could feel the weight of her thoughts pressing against her, a storm brewing behind her eyes. She was waiting for something, maybe for me to call it off, to give her an opening to back out. But I wouldn't. Not yet. I glanced at the clock. I should get going. Jessica and I are grabbing lunch today. Claire's jaw clenched, but she kept her voice even. You two sure are spending a lot of time together. I shrugged. Well, you know how it is. These things take effort. Her fingers tightened around her coffee mug, and I could tell she was barely holding back a reaction. Right, she said quietly. I stood up, grabbed my keys, and kissed her on the forehead. She flinched. See you later, babe. She didn't respond. As I walked out the door, I felt it, her world was shifting beneath her feet. The doubt that I had planted was taking root, and soon, she'd start questioning everything. And that was exactly what I wanted. That afternoon, I didn't actually meet Jessica for lunch. There was no Jessica. I spent the day at a quiet cafe, scrolling through my phone, waiting. And right on cue, Claire started texting me. Claire, how's lunch? I smirked. This was new. Me, great. Jessica is amazing company. We're talking about maybe heading to a wine bar later. No response for 10 minutes. Then. Claire, a wine bar. Ah. Now she was feeling it. Me, yeah. You don't mind, do you? I stared at the screen, waiting. She was typing. Stopping. Typing again. Claire, no, of course not. I leaned back in my chair, my smirk widening. She was unraveling, but she wasn't ready to admit it yet. That evening, I came home to find Claire in the kitchen again, this time chopping onions with even more force than the night before. She barely looked at me when I walked in. Hey, I greeted casually. How was your day? She shrugged. Fine. I set my keys on the counter and watched her. You seem tense. She let out a sharp breath and put down the knife. she turned to me, crossing her arms. Are you really doing this? I blinked, feigning confusion. Doing what? She waved a hand in frustration. This whole thing with Jessica. Are you actually seeing her? I tilted my head. Why does it matter? She scoffed. Because it's weird, that's why. You've never even mentioned her before, and now suddenly you're. I cut her off. I could say the same about your trainer. Her lips parted, but no words came out. She was trapped in her own logic, and she knew it. After a long silence, she finally shook her head. This isn't you. I took a slow step closer. Maybe you never really knew me. She swallowed hard. I don't want to fight. Neither do I said softly. Her shoulders dropped, relief flashing across her face. Then I smirked. So, have you picked out what you're wearing for your date? And just like that, the relief vanished. She turned away without answering. The cracks were turning into fractures, and I was going to let them split wide open. Friday arrived, and the weight of what was about to happen hung over the house like a thunderstorm waiting to break. Claire had been acting off all morning, fidgeting, checking her phone, making small talk she never usually cared about. By noon, she was pacing. Are you nervous? I asked, sipping my coffee, watching her from across the kitchen. She stopped mid-step. What? No. I smiled. You sure? You keep checking your phone. She slipped it into her pocket. I was just confirming the plans. I nodded, dragging out the silence between us. Letting her squirm. Then I stood up and stretched. Well, I should start getting ready too. Jessica and I have dinner reservations. Claire bit her lip. She hesitated, just for a second, but I saw it. She was running out of confidence in her own plan. That's nice, she said, forcing a smile. I tilted my head. You okay? Of course, she replied too quickly. I smirked and walked past her. Good. Just making sure. Her eyes followed me all the way up the stairs. By 6 p.m., Claire was dressed to impress, tight black dress, high heels, hair curled just the way I liked it. But something was off. She was stalling. I leaned against the bedroom doorframe, adjusting my cufflinks. Your trainer waiting for you? She flinched. He, actually texted. He had to reschedule. I raised an eyebrow. Oh. That's a shame. She crossed her arms. I guess it just means I'll stay in tonight. I smirked. Perfect timing, actually. Jessica just called me, she's already at the restaurant waiting for me. Claire's face froze. For a moment, I saw every emotion flash through her eyes. Confusion. Frustration. Something dangerously close to panic. And then, just like that, she snapped. Fine, she blurted, taking a step closer. You win, okay? I don't want to do this anymore. I acted surprised. Do what? She threw up her hands. This stupid game. I don't want to go on a date, and I don't want you to either. I stayed silent, letting her words hang in the air. Her breathing was heavy. She ran a hand through her hair, messing up the curls she had spent so long perfecting. I don't know what I was thinking, she admitted, voice shaking. I just wanted to feel something again. I folded my arms. And betraying me seemed like the best way to do that. Her face crumbled. I thought you'd fight for me, she whispered. Ah. There it was. I let out a slow breath. You wanted me to beg? She didn't answer. I shook my head. Claire, I did fight for us. Every single day. I gave you everything. And when you told me you were going on a date with another man, I realized something. I stepped closer. I wasn't the one who needed to fight. Tears welled in her eyes. I messed up, she whispered. But I cut her off. You already made your choice. I grabbed my jacket. And then I walked out the door. I didn't look back as I stepped outside. I half expected Claire to chase after me, to grab my arm, to beg me to stay. But she didn't. She just stood there in the doorway, frozen, watching me walk away. I wasn't actually going to meet Jessica. There was no Jessica. But Claire didn't know that. I drove to a quiet bar on the other side of town, ordered a drink, and let the silence settle around me. My hands rested on the glass, fingers tracing the condensation, my mind running over everything that had happened in the last few days. Claire's panic. Her hesitation. The way she cracked when she realized I wasn't going to fight for her. She thought she had me wrapped around her finger. She thought she could dangle betrayal in front of me just to see if I'd break. And now, for the first time in our marriage, she was the one left uncertain. An hour passed. Then another. Then my phone buzzed. Claire, where are you? I didn't reply. Claire, are you really with her? I smirked. She still wasn't sure. I let another 10 minutes pass before finally responding. You didn't care yesterday. What changed? I saw the little typing bubble appear. Then disappear. Then appear again. Claire, please come home. We need to talk. I exhaled slowly, setting my phone down. This was it. The moment she realized she was losing me. But the question was, did I even want to be found? By the time I got home, it was nearly midnight. Claire was sitting on the couch, knees pulled up to her chest, arms wrapped around herself. The second she saw me walk through the door, she stood. You weren't with her, she said quietly. I raised an eyebrow. That's what you want to talk about? She swallowed hard. I don't know why I did it. I tilted my head. Yes, you do. Her lip trembled. I wanted to feel something. I wanted to see if you still cared. I let out a sharp laugh. So the solution was to destroy us? Her face crumbled. I was stupid, she whispered. I thought I could control how it played out. I thought you'd stop me, that you'd tell me no, that you'd fight for me. But instead, her voice broke. Instead, you let me go. I stayed silent, letting her words sink into the air between us. She stepped closer, reaching for my hand. Please, she whispered. Don't let this be the end. For the first time since she had confessed her plans to me, I saw it. Fear. Not of losing her trainer. Not of being caught. Fear of losing me. But the thing is, she already had. I pulled my hand away gently. Claire, I sighed. This isn't just about Friday night. It's about what you were willing to do. Her breath hitched. I was never actually going to sleep with him. I swear. I gave her a sad smile. It doesn't matter. Tears spilled onto her cheeks. Please don't say that. I exhaled slowly, shaking my head. Claire, I loved you. I still do, in some way. But I can't trust you anymore. She reached for me again, but I stepped back. And then, for the first time since this all began, I said the words I never thought I'd say. I think we should separate. Her whole body went rigid, as if the floor had been ripped out from under her. No, she gasped. No, please, we can fix this. I shook my head. You don't break something just to see if it can be repaired. She sobbed. I turned toward the stairs. I'll sleep in the guest room tonight. Tomorrow, we'll figure out how to move forward. As I walked away, I heard her whisper something so soft, I almost missed it. I never thought you'd leave. I paused, just for a second. Then I kept walking. Because the truth was, neither did I.